This is a photographic process of a painting I did not long ago. It's a nocturne view of the Boston Harbor, and at the very back end, I always see the steeple of this church. This is a view from my studio, and it was a beautiful spring night, and I wanted to take this image into a canvas. So I decided to do an acrylic canvas. It's 8 by 16. And what I decided to do was paint it with acrylics and see how it went. So in this very first step, what I did was basically use a toned canvas. I just have a little tip for everybody. Instead of toning the canvas before I do my paintings, um, which probably is what professional painters do because they choose exactly the colors. Now, what I do is that whenever I have leftover colors in my palette, instead of throwing them away, I use them to tone many different canvases I have around. So they end up having sometimes one color on one side, another color on the other side, and many different tones and potential combinations in different canvases. So what I did is I picked out this particular canvas I had, 8 by 16, and I used it. I had toned it with a transparent yellow ochre and alizarin crimson combination with an orangey tinge on the left, and then on the right it had a bluish green tone. So I thought it was perfect for this particular view, and I used that. So you can see a lot of the transparent toned canvas in the back. So the first thing you do in the blocking stage, or I did in this step, was to establish the darks, and of course that helped me establish the horizon. And the dark is dark. So in a nocturne, I I have started painting nocturnes this year in 2018. Maybe 2017 I did my first ones. And the farthest away, I don't paint them light bluish colors like you do with a scene where there's a lot of atmospheric perception of the distance. In the nocturnes, they look very dark actually, but I didn't want to paint them completely black. So this is a combination of ultramarine blue, alizarin crimson. Sometimes I add a little bit of phthalo green, which was a very simple palette in this case that I was using. So I just established very roughly where I could see sort of buildings in the back, but what drew my attention really was the lights. And so I wanted to establish the lights very soon. And that's actually just basically alizarin crimson with yellow ochre, a little bit of cadmium red. It's not completely mixed in terms of the colors, so sometimes my brush had more red on one end, more yellow on the other, and there's a little bit of titanium white for these lights. So the lightest shapes and the lights were actually established with broad brush strokes, and I realized there's a mistake there. It says Brad, it should be broad brush strokes. So this was the blocking stage. And then the next step, I actually wanted to establish this as a really night scene. It was too light in the previous version in the block-in. So I established the clouds. This is what took a little longer because even though they look dark, they're really not that dark. So I kept adding more and more white to the mix. And in some cases, there was some warmish color, as you can see on the top left. So that has a little bit more of the alizarin crimson in that mixture compared to using just the ultramarine blue and phthalo green with alizarin crimson. So all of these colors are just piles of the same colors in different tones and different proportions of combinations. And I wanted to make sure I did establish all the clouds first. The reflections on the water give you the impression, they are reflecting the clouds that are right on top. So we don't see exactly those clouds. So it's not entirely a mirror image. And I was using a reference photo. Besides having seen this image, in this particular day, the harbor was very calm. There was no wind, and that's why it almost looks like a lake, but it's really, the sea. So I wanted to establish the dramatic lights of the night scene, and I darkened a bit the buildings, and I wanted to also make sure the steeple on the back, it's almost to the on the right fourth area of the painting in the middle. That's the church. It doesn't really look like a church, but I like that feature. And behind it was this streak of light that was making it pop out a bit more. And honestly, this was the second stage. I was planning to continue. Um, but after I did establish the brightest brights and the lightest tones on the sky and the water, the reflections, I used brush strokes. It was just a beginning, and in some areas you actually can see the background toned canvas. I was going to work more on this, but I left it for a while and I like it that way. So I think this is going to be the end of it. It was a rather quick scene. And it was actually a pleasure to paint. So I hope this can inspire you and you want to start painting. Go ahead and paint. Acrylics are a very easy medium to use, and it's very forgiving because if you make mistakes, as you can see also in other of my videos, you can correct them. So anyway, happy painting and thank you for watching.